Today I'm directing NASA to begin a search in all of our elementary and secondary schools and to choose as the first citizen passenger in the history of our space program, one of America's finest, a teacher.
And that teacher was Christa McAuliffe. On September 2nd, 1948, Christa McAuliffe was born in Boston, Massachusetts. Growing up in Concord, New Hampshire, Christa lived with her mother, father, and younger siblings. As a child, she always had a positive attitude and went into everything she did wholeheartedly. When Christa was 12, she witnessed Alan Shepard become the first U.S. astronaut in space. This led her to develop a deep interest in space that would remain with her for the rest of her life. Because of this love for space and for learning, she decided to apply for NASA's Teacher in Space program. Christa was one of 11,000 applicants. On July 19, 1985, she would be chosen by Vice President George H.W. Bush for the Teacher in Space program.
And the winner, the teacher who will be going into space, Christa McAuliffe. Is that you?
Each application asked teachers to prepare plans for a project that they could do on their trip aboard the Challenger. Christa decided to keep a simple journal of her trip because she believed that, like the pioneers, people should keep journals to document their daily lives, discoveries, and experiences. Here are some thoughts from another teacher who considered applying for the Teacher in Space program, Miss Darris.
You know, when it first came out and when I was young, I thought, wow, that would be really cool. But the more I thought about it, I thought, yeah, I don't think I could do that. It's pretty scary, and that's another reason I have such respect for her. I would be so excited about the part of being in space and doing all that, but it's the process of getting from Earth up there that terrifies me.
Over the next 6 months, Christa spent her time traveling, making public appearances, and training. There, she reviewed her lessons, learned emergency procedures, and worked with her crew to prepare for her mission. She endured multiple zero-gravity tests, practiced procedures in the neutral buoyancy lab, and partook in high G-force training.
A lot of the training is not physically rigorous. Mentally it is, because you're trying to learn all of this information to get yourself ready to go on board the shuttle.
Well, certainly it will change my life. I have been a classroom teacher for these years, but I've also been an adventurer, and I've always wanted to try something new, and certainly as a historian, to have the opportunity to embark on such an adventure, I certainly wouldn't be able to say no to.
We had the privilege to have shuttle astronaut Ronald M. Sega explain the launch procedure. Dr. Sega was a flight engineer and payload commander on the Space Shuttle Discovery in 1994 and 1996. He experienced much of the same training and launch experience as Christa would have.
In the shuttle era, the engines came up one at a time in fairly rapid sequence over 6 seconds of 3 engines coming up, and the shuttle starts to move a little bit back and forth with the engines coming up. They're about 500,000 pounds of thrust each. And then when the engines are stabilized, you can kind of feel the spool sort of alive at that point, if you will. And then the solid rocket boosters light. And they were about 5 million pounds of thrust. And it was a hard light. And then so you are focused on the screens, you're focused on other instruments. The system itself, is clearly working, but you are seeing some of these things that, because of the relatively rough burn of the solid rocket boosters, there's some shaking of the instrument panel, which is normal. So you really have to focus on what you need to be looking at. And then the shuttle was on its way.
Velocity 2,257 feet per second. Altitude 4.3 nautical miles. Downrange distance 3 nautical miles. Engines throttling up. 3 engines now at 104%.
Challenger, go at throttle up. Challenger, go at throttle up.
1 minute 15 seconds. Velocity 2,900 feet per second. Altitude 9 nautical miles. Downrange distance 7 nautical miles. Flight controllers here looking very carefully at the situation. Obviously a major malfunction. Dynamics officer that the vehicle has exploded. Flight director confirms that.
Get that thing out of here, please.
Waiting word from any recovery forces in the downrange field.
The crew of the Space Shuttle Challenger honored us for the manner in which they lived their lives. We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them this morning, as they prepared for their journey and waved goodbye and slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God. Thank you.
I was teaching high school at the time at Lumen Corning High School in Bedford. And I remember that morning thinking about the Challenger going up, and it was in the back of my mind, but busy teaching. And then all of a sudden a teacher came in the room and said, it exploded. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What exploded? And finally it sunk in that the Challenger had exploded. And I was like, oh, well, my first thought was, of course, that they would rescue them and it would be okay. And then as you started watching the videos, finding out how devastating it was. And I remember throughout the day seeing that video over and over and over again. I had a meeting that night, and that's all everybody could think about was what had happened. It was just so unexpected.
I was a professor at the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs, and actually at a company, the business facility, industry facility, on the day of the Challenger accident. I remember very clearly that everything stopped when someone said that there's been an accident with the shuttle, and we all converged in a kind of a conference room that had a TV and watched the replays of the shuttle, and it was a shock to everybody.
We've grown used to the idea of space, and perhaps we forget that we've only just begun. We're still pioneers. They, the members of the Challenger crew, were pioneers. And I want to say something to the school children of America who were watching the live coverage of the shuttle's takeoff. I know it's hard to understand, but sometimes painful things like this happen. It's all part of the process of exploration and discovery.
All right.
It's all part of taking a chance and expanding man's horizons. The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave.
I think her legacy would be taking a step beyond, taking a challenge, and wanting to bring that to students, opening a whole new avenue for them of knowledge and learning, and being able to put yourself right out there. And what I remember her is she was always smiling and happy and positive and so thrilled to be doing this. I never caught any kind of, oh, I'm not sure if I want to. She was so committed. So that commitment of taking on this challenge and wanting to make the world better for her students.
Despite the tragedy of the Challenger shuttle exploding on its ascent into space, there are multiple real triumphs that can be drawn from this event. Christa McAuliffe, an everyday citizen and extraordinary teacher, was able to pursue her dreams of one day traveling to space. And not only could she travel to space, but she could do so while doing the one thing she loved to do most, which was teach. Christa McAuliffe saw the importance of education continuing even in the harsh environments of space. This dream of teaching in space could have only been made possible by the fact that the U.S. had developed, up to that point, a consistent, reliable, and routine method of taking people to space in the NASA Space Shuttle program.
The tragedy was that America lost not only a great teacher and dreamer, but the credibility of the shuttle program was questioned for several years, delaying further exploration of space. This tragedy forced America to take a step back and reevaluate how we as a country should go forward with space exploration.
The Challenger accident made everyone rethink America's way forward, but it also strengthened our resolve to follow Christa McAuliffe's example, to dream fearlessly, and to never be afraid to tackle the impossible.
There's no reply for